In April, Russia sent more than 100,000 troops to Crimea and the eastern border of Ukraine. There are concerns about Moscow's intention and the potential for war. This is the largest military presence since the conflict between Ukraine and Russia erupted in 2014 when Russia invaded Crimea and backed separatists in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk and Luhansk regions, collectively as Donbass. During 7 years of fighting between Ukrainian forces and separatists in eastern Ukraine, more than 14,000 people have been killed. Attempts at political reconciliation have come to a standstill, and ceasefire violations in eastern Ukraine's Donbass region have become increasingly frequent in recent weeks. Ukraine and Western countries have accused Russia of sending troops and weapons to support separatists in Donbass, but Moscow has denied the allegation. By the end of April, the 58th Army Corps of the Southern Military Region, the 41st Army Corps of the Central Military Region, and the 7th, the 76th, and the 98th Airborne Divisions had returned to their bases. Their issues have raised the question of what causes Ukraine to have such a serious political crisis. To answer this question, let's take a look at the history and geography of this country. In the 9th century, Ukraine, known as Kievan Rus, was a loose confederation of East Slaves and Uralic peoples of Europe, under the rule of the Rurik dynasty, founded by Prince Varangian Rurik. The capital was located in Kiev. But the invasion of the Mongol Empire in the 13th century stifled Kiev's rise. Today, Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine all claim Kievan Rus as their forerunner. Thanks to the fertile black soil in the Ukrainian plain, this land has become one of the largest grain-producing regions in Europe, making it constantly under the scrutiny of major powers and increasing influence. By the 16th century, most of the country was under control of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. In the 17th century, war between Russian Tsar and Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth broke out. This war, also known as the War for Ukraine, made Ukraine's internal division even more deeply divided. The Treaty of Eternal Peace between the Russian Tsar and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was signed in 1986, leaving the eastern part of the Ukraine, specifically east of the Dnieper River, under the control of the Russian Empire. During the reigns of the great emperors, the steppe regions of eastern Ukraine became major economic centers for coal and iron, and the lands west of the Dnieper remained under Polish rule. Until the end of the 18th century, Poland was divided by Russia, the Habsburg dynasty of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and Russia. The land of Galicia in western Ukraine was under the control of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was only annexed to the Soviet Union after the end of World War II, while the rest of the Ukraine was gradually incorporated into the Russian Empire. Despite Russia's promises to give Ukraine autonomy in the Treaty of Pereyaslav, the Ukrainian leadership and the Cossacks never had the freedom and autonomy they wanted. However, Ukrainians hold the highest positions in the Russian states as well as the Russian Orthodox Church. At this stage, the Tsarist government carried out a policy of Russification throughout Ukraine. They forbid the use of the Ukrainian language in the publication and in public, and today both Russian and Ukrainian languages are spoken in this country. During World War I, there were 350,000 Ukrainians fighting in the Russian Imperial Army, while 250,000 people fought for Austro-Hungarian Army. During the war, the Austro-Hungarian government formed a Ukrainian corps to fight against the Russian Empire. This corps was the forerunner of the Ukrainian Galician Army. They fought against both the Bolsheviks and the Poles in the Ukrainian Civil War of 1918 to 1921, when the Ukrainian People's Republic declared its independence from the Russian Empire. In 1922, Ukraine was one of the founding states of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. But by 1930, many Russians and citizens of other Soviet republics had immigrated to eastern Ukraine to work. This helps explain why the sense of the nationalism in eastern Ukraine is not as profound as in western Ukraine. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, people in the East have had close ties to Russia and often support politicians with pro-Russian tendencies. Western Ukraine spent many centuries under the control of the European powers such as Poland and the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Even in the period between the two world wars, a quarter of the western territory of today's Ukraine was under Polish control. That helped answer the question of why people in western Ukraine tend to support more pro-Western politicians and why they see Ukraine as a part of Europe. According to the 2001 census, 67.5% of the population, mostly located in western Ukraine, declared Ukrainian as their mother tongue and were influenced by Catholicism, while 29.6% of the population, most of them living in eastern Ukraine, claims to be Russian and is more influenced by Orthodoxy. It is a problem of divided history, ideology, and ethnicity, which combined with the internal crisis of November 2013, when President Viktor Yanukovych rejected an agreement for a greater integration with the European Union and turned to Russia for help to receive a financial aid of up to $15 billion and forged closer ties with Russia, has led those in the opposition to Yanukovych pro-EU organized protests and occupied Ukraine's Independence Square. Snipers were hired to fire on both sides to incite violent conflict. During this crisis, Russia supported Yanukovych, while the US and Europe supported the protesters. In February 2014, Mr. Yanukovych was approved by the Ukrainian parliament to abolish the presidency. In March in the same year, Russia annexed Crimea to its territory through a referendum. In April, pro-Russian separatists rebelled against occupying territory in eastern Ukraine. They shut down Malaysia Airlines Flight 17 on July 17th, killing 298 people. Regarding the downing of this plane, it might have been accidental. Fighting between the rebels and the Ukrainian armies is intensifying. By August, as the rebels began to weaken, Russia intervened and supported the rebels. All this has brought the relations between Russia and the West and Ukraine to their lowest point since the Cold War. Western sanctions have pushed the Russian economy to the brink of recession. To this day, Ukraine's crisis is still ongoing and shows no sign of ending. While the Kiev government had a phone conversation with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg about the situation in eastern Ukraine on April 7, 2021, at that time, Ukrainian President Zelensky confirmed Ukraine's membership in the military bloc. This is the only way to end the war with the separatists. The Kremlin warned that Ukraine's accession to NATO would exacerbate the crisis in the East.